My name is Joseph Bennett, and 3 years ago I sat silently in my own living room listening to my children argue about who deserved my money more. The strange part, I wasn't dead. I was sitting only 20 feet away, weak from chemotherapy, too exhausted to interrupt them. And for the first time in my entire life, I realized something horrifying. My family had already emotionally buried me long before my body was actually gone. Before I tell you how my cancer diagnosis exposed secrets, greed, resentment, and betrayal inside my own family, make sure to subscribe. Because this story taught me something painful. Nothing reveals unresolved family wounds faster than the possibility of inheritance. I was 67 years old when doctors diagnosed me with stage 3 lymphoma. Before that, my life looked relatively ordinary. I owned a successful chain of auto repair shops across Ohio. Nothing glamorous. Just honest work. Long hours. Grease-stained hands. And decades of sacrifice. My wife, Patricia, and I built everything together from scratch. We raised 3 children, Daniel, Emily, and Rachel. For most of their childhood, we weren't wealthy, comfortable eventually, but never spoiled. At least, that's what Patricia and I believed. Looking back now, I'm not sure we saw things clearly. Daniel, my oldest son, became a financial advisor. Smart, confident, competitive. The kind of man who turned everything into a measurable outcome. Success, status, efficiency. Even conversations felt transactional sometimes. Emily, my middle child, became a pediatric nurse. Sensitive, emotional, always trying to hold everyone together. And Rachel, my youngest. Rachel was complicated, creative, unstable, warm-hearted but impulsive. Years of financial mistakes followed her everywhere. As parents, Patricia and I spent decades balancing support with boundaries, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. And maybe that's where our problems truly began. Because families rarely explode from one single event, they fracture slowly through unequal expectations nobody discusses honestly. Then Patricia died. Breast cancer. Fast cruel. 1 year from diagnosis to funeral. Losing her destroyed me in ways I still struggle explaining. People assume grief is mostly sadness. It isn't. It's disorientation. You suddenly lose the person who witnessed your entire life alongside you. The one person who understood every version of you. Without Patricia, the house felt emotionally hollow. And without realizing it, I started depending on the children more heavily afterward. Sunday dinners became mandatory. Phone calls became frequent. I clung to family because silence terrified me. Then came my diagnosis 2 years later. Lymphoma. Aggressive enough to require immediate chemotherapy. I still remember the look on my children's faces when I told them. Fear shock. And beneath both, calculation. Tiny, subtle. But there. Especially in Daniel. At first, everyone became incredibly attentive. Too attentive. Doctor's appointments. Medication schedules. Financial questions. Estate discussions. The sudden intensity unsettled me deeply. One evening after chemotherapy, Daniel sat beside my recliner holding legal paperwork. "Dad," he said gently, "we should probably organize things while you're still healthy enough." Healthy enough. Interesting phrase to say to someone actively vomiting from chemo treatments. At first, I appreciated the concern. Honestly, cancer makes people desperate for control over something. Anything. So I agreed to basic estate planning updates. Trust reviews. Medical directives. Power of attorney discussions. Normal things. But gradually the conversations changed tone. The children started discussing inheritance openly around me. Not cruelly. Almost clinically. Daniel believed equal distribution made sense. Rachel argued she needed more support because life had been harder for her. Emily mostly stayed silent. Uncomfortable. Torn, and somehow, I slowly transformed from father into future estate value. That realization happened gradually enough to become terrifying. One afternoon during treatment recovery, I pretended to be asleep in the den while the children talked in the kitchen. That's when everything changed. Rachel wanted the lake house. Daniel insisted selling it made more financial sense. Then Emily quietly said, "Can we maybe not discuss Dad like he's already gone?" Silence followed briefly. Then Daniel sighed. "We have to be realistic." Realistic. Another word families weaponize when emotions become inconvenient. Then came the sentence I still hear in my nightmares. Rachel laughed nervously and said, "Well, We all know there's going to be a lot of money eventually. Eventually, as though my death had already become scheduled family planning. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me collapse quietly. Not because they discussed inheritance, because none of them realized I could hear them. That meant these conversations happened often enough to feel normal now. Over the following months, I started noticing everything differently. Daniel asking increasingly detailed questions about investments, Rachel hinting constantly about financial struggles, Emily privately begging everyone to stop fighting, and underneath everything, unspoken tension. One night after a particularly brutal chemo session, Emily stayed behind after the others left. She looked exhausted, emotionally exhausted. Finally, she whispered, "Dad, I think everyone's scared." I nodded slowly. So am I. But deep down, I knew fear wasn't the only thing poisoning the family anymore. Money had entered the grief process early. And once money enters grief, people begin revealing parts of themselves they usually keep hidden. Then things got uglier. Much uglier. Rachel secretly asked me for a private advance inheritance loan. Daniel became furious after finding out. Emily stopped attending family dinners entirely because arguments became unbearable. And meanwhile, I was still trying to survive cancer. That's the part people forget about inheritance conflict around illness. The sick person is still alive while everyone emotionally reorganizes around their possible death. It feels horrifying. Like watching people quietly rehearse life without you. The breaking point came 6 months into treatment. My prognosis worsened temporarily after complications. Doctors discussed quality of life considerations. Suddenly, panic spread through the family. And so did greed. One Sunday afternoon, all 3 children arrived together unexpectedly. The atmosphere felt strange immediately. Too formal. Too rehearsed. Daniel eventually cleared his throat and said, "We think it may be time to simplify management of your assets." Simplify management. There's that phrase again. What they actually meant was control. The discussion escalated quickly. Rachel accused Daniel of trying to dominate everything financially. Daniel accused Rachel of manipulating me emotionally. Emily started crying halfway through dinner. And eventually I snapped. For the first time in my life, I screamed at my children. Actually screamed. "Stop talking about me like I'm already dead." The silence afterward felt nuclear. I stood there shaking from anger and exhaustion. Then I said something none of them expected. "I know exactly what all of you are becoming." Nobody spoke. Because deep down, they knew I was right. That night after everyone left, I sat alone in Patricia's old reading chair until sunrise. And honestly, I felt more lonely surrounded by family than I had ever felt completely alone. That realization changed everything. Over the following weeks, I quietly made decisions. Big decisions. I revised my estate completely. The businesses would eventually be sold with major percentages funding cancer treatment assistance programs. The lake house would become a retreat center for grieving families. The children would still inherit substantial wealth, but nowhere near what they expected. More importantly, control structures prevented future infighting. I also wrote each child a personal letter. Not about money. About character. About fear. About what I witnessed happening to our family. Then something unexpected happened. My treatment started working. Slowly. Miraculously. Scans improved. Doctors became optimistic again. And suddenly, everything inside the family shifted awkwardly. Nobody discussed inheritance anymore. Nobody mentioned estate planning. But the damage remained floating invisibly between us all. Eventually, I gathered everyone together one final time. I told them about the revised estate, the charities, the trust structures, the retreat center. At first, Daniel looked stunned. Rachel looked hurt. Emily quietly cried. Then I handed each of them their letters. The room remained silent for almost 20 minutes while they read. Rachel cried first. Then Emily. Even Daniel looked shattered emotionally. Because the letters forced them to confront something painful. They had allowed fear and entitlement to overshadow love while I was still alive. That realization broke all of us. But strangely, it also saved us. Over the next 2 years, our family slowly rebuilt itself more honestly. Not perfectly, but honestly. Daniel entered therapy after finally admitting how deeply success and control dominated his identity. Rachel confronted years of financial irresponsibility and dependency. Emily stopped trying to emotionally rescue everyone constantly. And me? I stopped measuring love by proximity or obligation. Cancer changed my body permanently, but it also revealed truths our family desperately needed to face before it was too late. Today, I'm 70 years old and officially in remission. Every Sunday, the family still gathers for dinner. Smaller now, softer somehow, more honest, and every time laughter fills the house again, I remember something Patricia once told me decades ago. Families survive hardship only when people remember they are humans before they are heirs. I didn't understand how profound that sentence was until we nearly destroyed each other. Have you ever watched money change the way family treated someone during illness or grief? Tell me in the comments below. And if this story touched you, please like and subscribe. Because sometimes the saddest part of dying isn't death itself. It's realizing people may start fighting over your absence before you're even gone.